So we're here with Niall Farrell. This is actually a great pleasure. I sort of feel only half of you is here.
How so?
Well, I was thinking as I was coming in earlier today that particularly in an Irish context, this is not your international persona as such.
Right.
A specifically Irish context. There are a few people that can be given the sort of label of, honorary Irish citizens properly, But you and Ludo certainly fit the bill. And I was thinking, what is? And then all of a sudden it came to me, Oliver and Hardy. That was it,
Wait, which one am I?
It's kind of like I think.
I think I know, but I don't want to confirm.
Yeah. Anyway, he's the skinny one. How about that? Yeah. So, but you've. This is out of context. Not just with the Irish Open, but coming over to Ireland, you've come over to a lot of the smaller tournaments. You've come over. You're probably coming over all the time. Goodness knows. But you seem to be here every single time there's something on. And what's all that about?
I just love it here. I don't know. Obviously my name's fucking Niall Farrell. I've got Irish ancestry and stuff, but obviously a big Celtic fan as well. So a lot of my poker trips are based on where is there good places to watch Celtic games, and there's a lot of them in Ireland. So do
you know what COTFC stand for? Because my dad, who's from Glasgow, put that at the end of every letter he ever sent to us.
COTFC. Come on the fucking Celtic.
Yes! Nobody, even Celtic fans, of this era, many of them don't seem to know. Maybe it's gone.
I've never heard that, but I just kind of.
You just figured it out.
Listen, I'm not just a pretty face.
Yeah, that's been alive since the 30s. That one, yeah, man. And then the next thing let's see how good you are, right? At the end of each letter, he would write COTFC. This is my dad, and WAFB.
We are Fenian boys.
Oh, very close. No, we are the feckin' blacks. You think the blacks? Yeah.
Right, okay.
So that's what my dad would write.
Okay.
But there is a.
I wasn't sure I could say that.
Yeah. So normally, I think what Niall's trying to point out is normally he'd swear a lot, but he's thinking of not doing it here. But it's okay. I suppose maybe this sets the scene for you. A lot of people these days that play poker, would be more, let's just say, on the athletic sort of scale, would be, I know, no, would be, less sort of cuddly, would be more associated with a certain amount of abstemiousness.
You think so?
More of
Nowadays?
the top players, yeah?
I'm more of a 70s guy, back when I would have been the athletic one at the table. I'm a throwback.
Right. So does that, are you saying you're 60 now?
No, I'm 34.
Oh, right, okay, sorry.
I'm
Scottish.
You
just look a bit older,
I'm
so
Scottish,
for a moment I thought you were a lot older.
Cultures.
Right, okay.
I've got about the same amount of time left to live as a 6-year-old man in other countries.
Okay, okay. But this type of intense training, which you do,
Of course, yeah.
How does it? How do you actually play at a high level and live this lifestyle? Very few people can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very being serious for a change. I'm very lucky that I take to poker very naturally. So back when poker was all instinct and looking a man in the eye and all that stuff, I did really well because I was really good at that. The kind of sitting in front of the computer, studying solver outputs and stuff like that, I'm not as good at, which is how modern poker is. But I'm just very lucky that
a sense of weariness with that. That was weird. I was reading your body language there, and you could.
Back before the solvers and stuff came in, the game was you against your man trying to outsmart each other and stuff. And now a lot of it is you against your man. Who can remember the outputs the best, which is who does the best homework. Fuck off, that's shite. You want to be okay, he's done this time, I want to do this, blah, blah, blah. I do like. Don't get me wrong. I do still like. In order to play at decent level, you still have to study and stuff like that. So like, as much as my persona may be the kind of guy who's at the bar drinking a lot and stuff like that, I do a lot of work. I'm a little bit of a secret geek behind the scenes.
right.
Like I do. You know.
So what kind of study do you do?
I do a lot of solver stuff now, especially when you try to play higher. Like, I mean, for the last 2 years, I haven't done anything because I had a son, so I've just been, my study's been at the park. But in general, like, to play the higher stuff, you do need to do a lot of solver work, which is very dry and very boring. It's the reason I didn't fucking become a lawyer after I graduated. It's the same shit. It's just really boring, you know.
Same reason I didn't become a lawyer. I didn't know we had that in common.
There you go. It's a good advertisement for law degrees. This isn't it? Two cunts sitting talking in a fucking.
Yeah. I mean, I had an orange and they made me throw it away.
But no, but like, so no, I do like. I feel like some people maybe think I just kind of wing it and stuff like that, but there is a lot that goes on behind the scenes, so to speak. Like, I know you don't wing it. It's kind of obvious. I've played against you a decent number of times. It's tough to play at a high level when you're just completely winging it. There are some like outliers who can do it, like Brian Kenny and like even Ludo to an extent. Like Ludo, I fucking try to get Ludo to study anything. The only thing he studies is racing post. You know what I mean? Like, but he still performs at a really high level. He's like a real throwback, like a savant.
It feels like he's probably he's definitely no. I mean, it's sort of like, you ever see that film with Russell Crowe and A Beautiful Mind? And he sees all these numbers, you know. So while Ludo's reading the Racing Post, he's kind of somehow he's seeing something which then he brings in.
I've seen Ludo make hero calls based on the type of shoes a guy's been wearing, and he's been right. He'll shit like that. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
So why'd you call that? It's like, seen his shoes, they're about 800 quid shoes, this guy's got places to be, I knew he was at it. Call. I'm like, that can't be what went through your mind, but surely not. He goes, aye. And I believe him because the guy.
It's interesting, like this whole area, right? Because normally, you know, a lot if you play poker, then people, outside the poker world, or even within the poker world, who maybe aren't quite so good, they talk to you like, do you do reads? But within the reading world, let's call it, you've got a huge range of how people do it and types of different ways
for sure
that they do it. So kind of, what's your kind of approach?
There's a lot to, like, especially in the live poker, like these kind of things, like that show's a good example. It's like you kind of throw the rule book out the window a little bit. Like day one of the Irish Open, it's like, doesn't matter how much solver work you've done, you've got some
solver work is a disadvantage.
Exactly. You've got like, it's like, did you study the spot where a guy just goes all in for 30k over a 400 bet? You're like, no, I haven't. There's not a lot of studying you can do for this. But a lot of it's just logical, like problem solving stuff. But like for reads and stuff, it's just, I've always been quite lucky that I can kind of, I don't know if it's like some kind of, I don't think it's empathy because I really don't give a shit about other people. But I think it's like, you can kind of, like, I think it's through experience you can kind of understand, like if you see somebody doing one thing and acting this way, you can kind of through experience extrapolate it to different situations. So like you see him do A in A spot, then X spot comes up, you're like, well, I expect him to do X, and just through kind of experience you kind of, like if a guy misses like 4 or 5 easy bluffs in a row and you show down, and then you have a really good hand and the guy shoves the river or something, you've watched him miss 4 or 5 bluffs already, so you can make a big laydown because you've already seen that he's not finding the bluffs. So it's just little things, it's just little logical things like that, and all these things can come together where you can like make these kind of reads in these live tournaments.
And specifically, so what I would describe those as is they're like pattern reads, and in a live tournament they become much more specific than mathematical reads.
For sure, absolutely. Like you see, like you can watch, you can really make a lot of really accurate predictions as to how someone will play a different spot watching the other spots. So like, you can see a guy like play a hand like really passively and just check call down, or like a really important one I find in live poker is if someone checks back a hand on the river that's a really easy value bet. So they just get to the river and it's a classic kind of live, like the pot's big enough, I'll just take it, right? And then a few orbits later you'll play a hand with them and they'll bet the river, and you've already watched them miss these really easy value
So
bets.
you know that their hand is way stronger.
Yes, they've either got a really unlikely, super strong hand, or they're bluffing. And they're more likely to, obviously, like if a guy's missing a top pair value bet 2 orbits ago, and then the board runs out where he can't, there's very few value bets you can make some really absurd, like, hero calls.
So here's the thing, right? I mean, a lot of poker's sort of focused now on solvers, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. But most of the poker community are recreational players still, and always will be. And often, I was talking to John Hesp the other day, and he was saying that people, pros, and and I think the more mid-level pros, were actually kind of given out to him because he was, not. There's something wrong with what he said. It wasn't just proper or something. I mean, it feels odd. It wasn't proper, And he was kind of like, he's only been working with this for a few years, and he. But it was clear that what he was doing was very. It's almost like versions of what you're saying, different styles of that. So for the recreational player, there's a lot of hope, because if you maximize the skills you've got in terms of whether it's like with John Hesp, he was a bit in the fashion business, then he owned a caravan park, and however he grew up in a pretty working class background, and whatever way he developed his life. You think he picked up the ability to watch and listen and take notice, and he was good at reading people. He was a salesman, So he put it all together, and he came up with his own version. And do you think it would be true to say that for a recreational player to perform highly, if you try and outdo the guys on the solvers, it's not going to happen? But if you maximize your own skills, is that the best way?
I would say really dependent on the guy. Like, I think like doing the solver stuff's really good for understanding reasoning, but like some people can kind of just naturally come to reasoning themselves. But like for me, what I find really good about solvers is when I run something in a solver, like I say, okay, this is my hand, and I see how the other person's hands are meant to react. You can reverse engineer it, so you can go, right, they're doing this because of this, and then when that gives you a kind of logical rule, and then you can apply it to different situations. If you're a recreational player who's like, you're playing in like these kind of tournaments, like Irish Open or like a 300-euro like tournament buy-in or whatever, it's going to be doing what you said is going to be much more valuable, because as much like you can learn the kind of basic, it's not the rules, but it's like the why of poker. So like there's this kind of flop, there's you want to see bet big, and this kind of flop you want to see bet small. You can look at that and you can work out why that is, and that's all you really kind of need to win in these kind of games. And the rest of your time's much better spent maximizing the other stuff that brings you edge. I would say if you're trying to beat fucking Mikita Bajkowski in a 8.3 million buy-in fucking tournament where no one's allowed to look at each other, you must all wear scarves, you're gonna have to fucking sit in the computer for hours. But you're not, most people aren't doing that.
Yeah, you're not going to be doing that.
And you're going to get much more progress on the other side than you are, like, it's as long as you do the basic stuffs, like learn, like understand logic, and then you're much better once you've got the kind of logic rules moving on to their shit, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm bad.
So for you, basically what you're saying is that it's like there's a set of foundations, right? So you've got the foundations of what general tendencies are. Yeah. What generally will happen. So people who don't tend to get that good at poker often don't grasp that, and I feel that what happens is they get caught in cul-de-sacs of small bits of understanding or over obsessions on particular hands, and then they don't see patterns.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
No, that does for sure. Like there is you can learn all this stuff you learn like from these solvers stuff, this vacuum stuff, but it's good for foundations. But like you can learn so much more from like just watching like your opponent. Like you're in a hand with the opponent and say the flop's like Jack 10-9, and they've raised pre-flop and then they c-bet, and you call, and it gets to showdown and they've got pocket fours, right? You can just assume this person is betting far too many flops. This is not like, he should be betting fours on Jack 10-9 versus your hand, blah blah blah. So you can make the next logical deduction is, if this guy is betting too many flops, how do I take advantage of that? And the advantage you take is start calling a lot more, start raising a lot more on flops. The guy's far too wide, and this is just a very simple logic thing. Like Man is putting too many chips
and
in.
just to put that in context, the way I see it is this, because I think when people hear that sometimes they don't understand it, yeah? And maybe is the extra bit to put on to help people is, what you're doing is you're looking for the easier ways to improve your game that are most likely to produce results.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, I was talking to someone earlier today who was struggling with being too tight, and I was saying, look, first of all, you get people come up and say, I don't know, I don't seem to ever get any chips, and what can I do? What can I do? And I used to sort of give the second piece of advice first.
Yeah.
But it never worked. Yeah. So I'm not going to do the second piece. I'm going to say the first piece is are you actually prepared to change your game? And about 90% of people leave at that moment.
Yeah.
Right? They're not.
Fuck.
And I won't say that. Well, no, but are you?
Yeah.
So if you get through first question, the next question is, okay, maybe make a list of the top 5 new things that you could try. The easiest ones possible.
Yeah.
The guy who's very tight or very loose, who limps in on the small blind. Maybe he's definitely not. He raised there. He's not trapping you.
Yeah.
And your image is that of an extremely tight player. Maybe this is one you could take advantage of.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Or something of those nature.
For sure. Yeah.
But for you, in terms of when you perform well and when you perform badly, I mean, there's a kind of list which I've sort of not come up with, but got from various sources of things that all high performers, not just in poker, do. There's 4 things. They set a goal, they work hard, they've got self-awareness, and they take responsibility. And lots of other people have other things. But those 4 seem to be a solid. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. The one thing I would say is setting goals in poker is really tricky, because when you think of a goal, a lot of people think of a result. In poker, your progression doesn't because of the nature of the game, doesn't necessarily. You don't, like, to put it simply, you don't always get what you deserve in poker. You might be the most studious, hardest working learner in the game, but then you get aces in against 3s and some cunt hits a 3. So the results, setting goals like I want to win X amount is not a correct goal to set. But your goal would have to be, I want to learn this board, I want to learn this. You don't. In a lot of people, I feel like they do things like, my goal this year is to win a bracelet, and it's things that are out with their control. I always feel like your goal should be something you can control.
But can there be for some people, because I've talked to a fair few people, some people find inspiration in almost having predestination goals. And what that does is it can play a part.
It drives you towards it. No, I'm all right with having overall, you want that to happen.
So a goal, sure. Each of these areas, you can break down and you look at different ways and re-explore and reconsider, etc., etc. But for you personally, when you think, what is it that you do when you play well, and what is it you do when you don't?
Yeah. I think the main thing in poker, and I still think this is still the biggest divider between good players and excellent players, is the ability to execute, especially under pressure. There's so many times when I was coming up more like in the earlier starts of my career where I knew what I needed to do, and just lack of a better technical term, I would shit it and not do it. And the ability to learn what you're meant to do, and then I feel like executing
do it.
Yeah, executing is just like, honestly, the amount of people after they played a hand went, oh, I should have done this. I'm like, yeah, you fucking should have. Why didn't you?
And what did you do to make that more the case?
Well, fortunately, I'm dead inside, so I don't give a shit. But for me, it was just, I don't know. For me, I'm quite lucky that I wouldn't. Some people might say arrogant. I would say I'm very confident in my own abilities, and if I do the work and I'm confident something's right, I don't have this. A lot of people have this apprehension of you run there's 11 people left in a big tournament, and a lot of people don't want to run a massive bluff for their tournament life. But if you've done the work and you know it's correct, for me,
that's so different than doing it at the beginning of a tournament.
Exactly.
For you, I'm just saying for you.
For anyone.
No, but I'm saying, first of all, I mean, it's two bits, right? One for you, you're saying that's no different, right? But many people, in my opinion, including myself, have struggled with adding something on. It may be an anxiety, it may be a distraction, it may be something.
A lot of times, especially in a tournament setting, if you've been playing for 3 days, you're super emotionally invested, and there is this kind of, for a lot of people, this mental block where you don't want to dust something off that you're so emotionally invested in without like a lot of people are really resistant to making a correct bluff or something because they don't want to be the guy who's like, well, I played this tournament for 3 days and then I went out on a big bluff. I went out with nothing. But if you've done the work and you know that's the correct play, then that's what you should do. And it's really tough for a lot of people to make that one step, and it's the difference between the guys who win the tournaments and don't, in my opinion. But as I said, for me, I'm very lucky because if I've done the work and I know it's correct, I don't feel that anxiety. I know it's right. I know this is what I'm going to do. So I'm able to take that step, which is good for me. But there is a big, there's a lot of people. I mean, how many times have you been I've definitely done it before in my career. I'm a lot better at it now, but you're 11 left in this big tournament and you know there's a spot where you should pull the trigger. You can't do it, and you just tap the table. Your hand just taps the table without you doing it, and it's like.
No, I had one where I've only played a couple of tournaments since I came out of lockdown, but Limerick, I played it, made them down in Limerick just there, and I made the final table, so it was like 800.
I remember that.
But I had what?
I got a little rub down when I busted off you. It was nice.
Did I bust you?
No, I busted. I was walking by, and you just looked up and went, "Good run."
I know. No, sorry, that's one of my joys. Great joys.
I loved it. It was good.
Yeah,
I'm all about that.
Yeah, I know. And I usually only do it to people I reckon can take it. I know you'd enjoy it. Yeah.
You know I'm off to the pub anyway. I'm like, oh, give a shit. Good luck.
Yeah, but there was twice in that final table where I should have 3-bet, and I didn't. And then often I combine that. When I do that, then I can combine it with some other stupid bloody mistake, where I do something too loose. But twice I went, and it was, for me, I mean, it depends on your capacity, yeah. But for me, I usually see quite a lot of these things, and normally I don't have much trouble pulling the trigger. But it's very subtle. It doesn't. What is it? What kind of things do people add on that they don't do that? I mean, you've said what it is, but is there any way you could you probably talk to a lot of people about it?
Yeah, I think you just have to become more self-secure in yourself, that you know what the right thing is. And a lot of people, myself included, I mean, I've been very lucky to have quite a good career in poker, but there's still times when I go 3 months and every time I bluff, someone's got it. Every time I value bet, everyone folds, and I go, what the fuck am I doing? And then I've been playing for 10 years, so it happens to everyone. But just becoming more, the more work you do, the more secure you become in the knowledge. And if you're secure in the knowledge, I think it makes it so much easier to execute. If you're not sure if something's right or not, then it's really, really fucking tough to do it. If there's 30% and you're going, oh, I'm not sure if this is the right play, then it's fucking hard to do it, But if you've done the work and you're 100% sure it's the correct play, it becomes so much easier. So basically,
for example, for Ludo,
yeah,
his work would be he's looked at a lot of guys' shoes.
No, he's shoe daft.
He's what?
Yeah, we call him Jimmy Choo. No, I'm joking. No, Ludo's like.
But it's a different. I think I'm joking.
No.
But I'm trying to say it's a bit like the goal setting. Yeah, work means a lot of different things. Yeah, to different people.
For sure. Yeah.
So it's more that the work Ludo does is different. It's just different.
For sure.
So you have to. So before you even get into that, it's almost like I think it's better going, what are my goals?
Yeah,
and it takes a bit of unpacking. What is hard work? What is self-awareness?
Yeah.
And then you go on a journey with those, and it seems that then that's what helps. That's what actually gets you there.
I would agree with that. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I mean, there is obviously, everyone's different. There's lots of different ways. Some people are really studious and do really well that way. A lot of people are very viscerally aware of information, which is another way of learning, where it's a lot of experience-based learning, where you've seen a lot of shit. It's I've seen, so when you get to these really important spots, your brain's I've seen this shit before, I know what to do. So there's that kind of learning. There's also I've read up on this shit, I know what to do. There's lots of different things about obviously the end goal is for your brain to go, I know what to do, and then do it.
However you do that, yeah.
Yes.
So
but you can get to it different ways, obviously.
So would one way of describing it generally for people be this, is if your hand is not putting in those chips with a degree of confidence, yeah, enough of the time, that's the first place you need to look.
For sure.
So if that's happening, it's like reverse engineering that, you know. If that's what's happening, then that's immediately where you have to look and try and find
being comfortable with your decision regardless of the outcome is what I would say about it.
Right, and the lower you go down in poker, what happens is people keep talking more and more about outcomes.
Yes.
More and more
which
about
are
this.
not important at all.
Yeah.
I mean, they're important to your bank account, but to being better at poker, they're not important. Like, if you want to get better at the game of cards, it doesn't fucking matter.
And for you now, I mean, you know, you're now a father. Is this the first time you've been a father?
Yeah, first time father. Yeah.
And are you sure it's yours?
I mean, he's honestly he's massive for his age, blonde hair, blue eyes, handsome.
Has to be.
It could be a flip.
And I'm kind of like, do you think? I mean, as you're getting a bit older now, I mean, one, do you think you're going to keep playing a lot? And two, do you feel that there's some intangible bit of kind of enthusiasm that could wane? And if that goes, might that be it? And
Absolutely,
you'll do something else?
Absolutely. I'm lucky that I still enjoy poker more than anything else in the world. But like before, I feel like to get to a really high level at poker, you have to be like, when you first start, you have to be obsessed. You have to be like, I wake up, I check poker, I read poker, I do this, blah, blah, blah.
In my day, I'm going back 30 years.
Yeah.
I would go home, smoke joints, right, and wake up my flatmate, whoever that was. In fact, there's a guy who I hadn't seen in 20 years, right, and I saw him at a funeral last week. Yeah.
Right.
So I was having a chat with him. And he sort of reminded me that what I do is I come home, and he likes smoking dope a lot too, you know. So this is back. Obviously, I wouldn't do that now, but it's like 30 years or so, or something like that. And I would smoke. He didn't play poker at all, right? Not at all. Not a freaking interest in the world at it. And we'd light up the joint at 2 or 3 in the morning, and we'd smoke, and I'd go through hands with him. Yeah. So he was essentially, and he would go,
Exactly like,
yeah. I don't know, but no, wait a second. You know, he had that, and then I had this, and I had that.
Wait. Clubs, clubs, right? Clubs, yeah. Clubs.
And this was one of the, you know, so basically that was my training back then, because we didn't have any solvers. All you had was your pal.
But that is a similar.
It's the same stuff. It's no different.
It's such a stream like obviously when I started, it was like what I would do is I'd go on poker forums and stuff and read about the shit. But it's the same mindset. It's
we didn't have poker forums then.
Yeah, exactly. Of course. Well, obviously we had it really good. Like we had a lot of information available that you guys didn't have.
Well, one of the things I used to do is when I first went to Vegas, one of the main studies I'd do is I'd look at the pictures of all of the guys who won the World Series, you know, and I'd sort of go,
I'm prettier than this man.
There must be something in that. You know, it's kind of like, I mean, I think I have a few ideas.
That can't be the Raz champion. I'm prettier than this man.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I think there's just a lot of different ways in, you know.
For sure, yeah. I mean, like that enthusiasm is like massive when you're starting. I still love poker more than anything else that I've ever done. When I say anything else I've done, I'm not really done much else. I mean, I did a law degree and I fucking sold mobile phones at uni, so it's not exactly a sterling list of humanitarian fucking missions I've been on. You know what I mean?
Would you plan to do some humanitarian missions?
I don't know, maybe. Nah, probably not. But nah, I don't know. But like, but I can't like. I do still love poker, but like, I don't think I'll ever love it as much as when I first got into it. But I think that's the same with everything. I don't think there are some people. There's like freaks in the world, like Chris Moorman. This fucker's been playing for like 20 years or something. I don't even know how. Like even now, like I'll be sat at home on a Sunday watching a fucking film, and my phone will just go.
Chris Moorman isn't watching a film.
Yeah, no, it's just go, and I'll be like, the ACR 109's overlaying. Are you jumping in? I'm like, I'm watching a film, mate. Fuck off, like. But he's still, after all his years, like he's like flying to different countries. If he's in a country you can't play online poker, he flies to a country to play it. And those guys are always going to be the elite, like, because he loves it as much as he did at day one. I don't quite love it as much. I do love money. I'm not going to lie. Money is cool. I do really enjoy piles of money. Those are great. And this is a good way to get it without much work. Not does it work now, but like, you know, compared to other.
I mean, you're sitting down, you're trying to compete against these guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing that you spot some rigidities sometimes because people are. You can spot rigidities in people. I mean, I had this theory, right? So tell me what you think of this.
Yep.
So I was sort of not playing so much for a bit, and then I started coming back and playing a bit. But at that stage, everyone was kind of like doing computery stuff. And I came up with this theory that what you had to do, so I'm a kind of reader, really. I play somewhat similar to you, a bit less technical. So halfway between you and Ludo or something, I think.
Right.
And I reckon that all I had to do, right, because I kept sort of thinking that someone was reading me when they were looking at me, but they weren't. They were just sitting there.
Yeah.
And eventually I came up with this idea that you had to read how much Terminator each person was, right? And then you'd read the bit that wasn't Terminator. You do your best with the Terminator stuff, and then you read the bit that is sort of their remaining snippet in some cases of humanity.
You need your own Terminator advisor. Well, it's like target bluffing.
Yeah. I think it is that. But I mean, is there some kind of distinction like that? I mean, I think.
I mean, there is a bit. I think as much as even like I think even people like I think outside the top guys like 10, top 10 guys like your fucking Daniel Dvorak guys, these guys that are like really winning at the top level, I still think emotions still play a bigger part than people think, and like regardless of how much you've done, like there are still. I mean, I know myself. Like, there's been times where even just little things like a hand you always raise under the gun, I've not raised because of an emotional reaction to something that's just happened, and that's a deviation from the right strategy that I've made, even though I know what the fucking right strategy is. But there's been something that's happened to hand before, and the emotional reaction for me means I've played differently, and I still think that happens with almost everyone.
So in practice for people, let's assume that's the case. I agree, that is the case. You know, one way of describing people who aren't playing so well, or when you're not playing so well, is they just have more of those.
Exactly.
Right.
For sure.
So the number of those emotional reactions, which in many cases they refuse to admit. Yeah.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So the gig is trying to spot them.
Oh yeah.
And figure out a way to do something about it. But and I think this is the way things work, is once you spot one, you kind of, and something good happens from it, then you can, there's a bit more space, and you can kind of spot the next one.
Exactly.
Yeah? Whereas I think what happens to a lot of people, they end up in a funk where, because they're not doing the work, because they're not looking at their way, because they're not doing these things, they don't really spot anyway, and it's all just a giant blancmange of emotion, frustration, and still wanting to win, and it ain't gonna happen.
Exactly. Yeah. No, for sure.
Is that?
I would 100% agree with that. And I think it really does affect, because like a lot of the super top pro stuff that like used to have they would kind of poo-poo the idea of think like game flow used to be a big buzzword, right? But then when the correct ranges came out, like game flow does not matter. I open Jack 10, I dealt Jack 10, I raise Jack 10, right? So game flow is like doesn't fucking matter, right? But it does still exist, because I know myself there's been spots where I've got like the worst hand that's always meant to open in a spot, and I don't raise it because of what's happened just before. And that's a deviation I'm making as someone who's allegedly quite good at cards, right? So if I'm doing that, the fuck are these other guys doing? They're all making their own varied mistakes. And again, as I'm saying, outside that super elite, I still think this is a really, really big part. And understanding that emotional thing it can be really, really, obviously really advantageous and really profitable.
Well, the bottom line is, for everyone, let's say, except the super elite, and probably still some of those, this definitely applies. Yeah?
For sure, absolutely.
It particularly applies to every single semi-pro recreational player. It just applies. And in huge effect, it may be the biggest way, I think it's almost even a bigger way of improving your game than doing loads of just study. It's very close.
Absolutely. I mean, you can do a lot of study based on what correct ranges are, but if some guy's having a breakdown and he's playing way outside the correct ranges, your studies.
Which are the games that most people play.
Which is pretty much every game, right?
Yeah.
It's fucking worthless. It's not worthless to learn the kind of guiding principles of poker, like this sport. Like, you want to bet big because of this reason. You want to bet small because of this reason. Those are very valuable principles, and if you want to be good at poker, you should learn them. But what a lot, especially on like these kind of mid-stakes online pros now, is just study, remember. So they remember the what, but they don't remember the why.
Is that really a life though?
No,
I mean you know.
Well, that my whole stick is like, honestly, God, I was like, see, if I wanted to do a lot of paperwork, I'd have been a fucking lawyer. I want to play cards. You know what I mean? But so for me, I'm like, for fuck's sake, I need go home and run 70 high-low boards, cut off versus button. I'm like, or I could just go to the pub, you know. Like.
No, or I could continue that like ever-ending quest to suck my own cock. Yeah, I mean, it feels like a much better use of my time.
Tougher, I'm not gonna lie.
No, to suck your own cock definitely.
I kind of thought like 18, 19 might have been the. I think I might have missed the peak. Like I think it's getting more and more futile by the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is,
medical science can maybe step
the more
in
children you have, the bigger it gets.
Really?
Yeah, it's a scientific fact.
I didn't fucking notice that. Mine got smaller, if anything.
Well, yeah, no, it's smaller nearly all the time.
Right, yeah.
But once or twice a year when it gets big, it's even bigger.
Oh, wow.
That's a scientific fact. I mean,
look forward to that.
Yeah,
then.
no, it's good. It's one of the good things about getting older. And that's the perfect moment to end this.
An absolute pleasure. that might be my absolute favourite poker interview I've ever done. Amazing.